Good morning. This is Kevin Hicks, pastor of Conyers Presbyterian Church. It's March 19th, 2020, Thursday. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Pastor, your hair is a mess. Well, I'm working from home today. Haven't showered yet. Haven't had time to do my hair, so you'll have to pardon me on that. There's a story I want to share with you. If you dig into Presbyterian history, you'll end up running across a man named B.B. Warfield. He was a man who was a preacher and a theologian, ended up being principal of Princeton Theological Seminary. This would have been the late 1800s, early 1900s. He wrote an article about the Shorter Catechism. That was a part of the Westminster Standards written 500 years ago or so, that helped define the theology, the thought of Reformed theology, which is Presbyterian theology. In this article, he is talking about the importance of learning our faith through things like the Catechism. And he shares a story about two men who were out west when in a town where it was chaos and violence and things were just sort of out of control, and the two men passed each other on the sidewalk. They didn't know each other, and when the first man passed the other man, he noticed how incredibly calm the man was in the midst of this chaos, and it intrigued him, and so after he passed him, he turned around to look at him again, and he found that man had turned to look at him. And when the other man saw that he had turned to look at him, they both came back to each other. And then one of them touched the other's chest and said, "What is the chief end of man?" And the second one responded, "The chief end of man is to glorify God and to enjoy Him forever." And then he said, I knew you were a Shorter Catechism boy." And the other one said, "Well, that's exactly what I was thinking about you." And so they noticed this calmness about each other in the midst of chaos. And the calmness was not based on their own skills or what they thought of themselves. It wasn't based on what their friends or neighbors was doing. It wasn't based on what the government was doing. It was based on their deep-seated belief that God is in control of everything. Their deep belief in the sovereignty of God in the midst of all this chaos, and it allowed them to walk through the chaos with a calmness that wasn't reflected in most of the people around them. And so that's what we're called to in the midst of this pandemic, is to remember that God is in control, and we're not dependent on ourselves, we're not dependent on our neighbors, we're not dependent on the government to take care of everything. We are in God's hands from beginning to end, and that allows us a certain level of confidence as we walk through this. So I know your lives are topsy-turvy. I know some of you are working at home and some of you are out of work, and I just want you to keep the faith, keep your faith in Jesus Christ. Don't rely too heavily on your own skill set, your neighbors, your government, but rely on God and know that we will get through this and that we've been through worse. So take care of yourself, keep your faith, stay calm. Amen.